The Galactic Council had always found humans peculiar. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the podium of the Great Assembly, her voice carrying across the crystalline chamber where representatives of 47 species gathered. Her words were measured, diplomatic, almost apologetically soft. The Terran Federation respectfully requests additional time to consider the mining rights proposal for the Kepler system, she said. We're concerned about the impact on the 3 inhabited worlds. A series of clicks and whistles interrupted her, the Vorthack delegate expressing what the translation matrix rendered as profound irritation. Around the chamber, other species shifted uncomfortably. The humans and their endless concerns for lesser species had become a running joke. High Counselor Zeth Kree of the ancient Altarian Empire leaned forward. Ambassador Rodriguez, surely the Terran Federation recognizes that these primitives lack even basic stellar communication. They contribute nothing to galactic civilization. Elena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Every sentient species has inherent value, High Counselor. The Federation's position remains unchanged. In the observation galleries, junior diplomats exchanged knowing looks. The humans were at it again, soft-hearted, idealistic, frustratingly principled. They had emerged from their death world, a planet so hostile that it had forged them into nearly indestructible beings, only to become the galaxy's most persistent advocates for peace. It was, frankly, embarrassing. The Vorthack delegates' bioluminescent patches flared dismissively. The Deathworlders speak of value while sitting on the strongest military in known space, yet use it only for rescue operations and humanitarian aid. Such waste. Elena nodded politely. The Terran Defense Fleet exists to protect, not to conquer. Perhaps we might table this discussion. Another committee, groaned the hegemony representative. More studies. More delays. The humans will form a subcommittee to form a committee to consider forming a task force. Gentle laughter rippled through the assembly. Even Elena smiled slightly. Democracy is thorough, yes. As the session ended, Elena walked through the station's corridors alongside Commander James Mitchell. The artificial environment hummed around them, gravity generators, atmospheric processors, the quiet efficiency of technology that made space habitable for dozens of species. They think we're weak, James observed quietly. I know, Elena replied. And that's probably for the best. What the galaxy didn't understand was that humans had learned something fundamental during their evolution on Earth. Sometimes the strongest predators were the ones that chose not to hunt. They had survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, and extinction events not through aggression, but through cooperation, adaptation, and careful resource management. But cooperation required choosing when to be gentle and when to bare teeth. The galaxy had grown comfortable with humanity's gentle nature. They had forgotten that gentleness was a choice, and that apex predators could always choose differently. They would learn soon enough. The attack came without warning. Haven Prime had been humanity's pride, a terraforming success story where 2 million humans lived alongside indigenous species they'd carefully integrated into their society. The planet's crystalline forests had been preserved, its methane-breathing natives given equal representation in the colonial government. It was exactly the sort of idealistic project that made other species roll their optical sensors. Admiral Rebecca Torres received the distress signal while the Terran Defense Fleet was engaged in another humanitarian mission, evacuating refugees from a solar flare crisis in the Zeta Reticuli system. The message was brief, fragmented, and terrifying. Unknown ships, hundreds of them, the cities are, oh God, they're not taking prisoners. Then, silence. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the TDF Indomitable, her weathered face illuminated by the tactical display. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. Time to Haven Prime at maximum burn, she asked. 18 hours, Admiral, replied Lieutenant Commander Alex Park. Do it. Torres opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Torres. We have a code black at Haven Prime. I'm authorizing Protocol 7. A moment of silence fell across the bridge. Protocol 7 hadn't been used in 30 years. When the Terran Defense Fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Haven Prime 18 hours later, they found a world on fire. Orbital debris formed a ring of destruction, the remnants of civilian ships that had tried to flee. The surface glowed with burning cities. And in orbit, like vultures over a corpse, hung the ships of the Kethvar hegemony. The Kethvar were old enemies, a species that viewed conquest as art and slavery as economics. They had been contained by Galactic Council sanctions for decades, reduced to raiding backwater systems. They had finally decided to take something more valuable, a human world. Admiral, called the communications officer, transmission from the Kethvar flagship. Put it through. War Master Thekmor's chitinous features appeared on the holographic display, compound eyes glittering with satisfaction. Ah, the humans arrive. Too late, as always. Your soft colonial experiment is finished, Admiral. The survivors will make excellent slaves. Torres' voice was perfectly level. War Master Thekmor. You have committed genocide against a protected species. I'm giving you one chance to surrender. Thekmor's mandibles clicked in laughter. Surrender? To the species that forms committees? You cannot even protect your own colonies, Deathworlder. Torres cut the transmission. Fleet signals, Admiral, asked Park. Admiral Torres looked at the burning world below, at the place where her daughter had been studying, where her grandchildren had been learning to walk among crystal trees. Signal the fleet, she said quietly. Weapons free. No prisoners. No quarter. She paused, her voice carrying across every ship in the fleet. We're here to teach the galaxy what happens when you hurt our people. The Battle of Haven Prime lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Kethvar hegemony's entire battle fleet had been reduced to debris and radiation. Not a single enemy ship escaped. The galaxy noticed. The footage spread across the galactic communication networks like wildfire. In the halls of the Galactic Council, delegates watched in stunned silence as tactical recordings from Haven Prime played on the main screen. Ship after ship of the Kethvar fleet, vessels that had terrorized the Outer Rim for centuries, simply vanished under concentrated Terran fire. Replay Section 77 Alpha, requested High Counselor Zeth Kree, his voice lacking its usual condescending tone. The hologram showed the TDF destroyer Relentless pursuing a fleeing Kethvar cruiser. The human ship moved with perfect grace, dancing between desperate weapons fire. Then, with surgical precision, the destroyer's main guns fired once. The Kethvar cruiser broke apart. Computer, calculate the power output required for that weapon's discharge. Numbers cascaded across the display. Several delegates made sounds of distress. That's 3 times the theoretical maximum for a destroyer-class vessel, whispered the hegemony delegate. In intelligence centers across the galaxy, operatives worked frantically to understand what they'd missed. How had the humans hidden such devastating capability? The answer came from Captain Lisa Morgan, addressing war correspondents aboard the TDF Yorktown. The question I keep getting is how we destroyed the Kethvar fleet so completely. The assumption seems to be that we were holding back our true capabilities. She looked directly into the cameras. That's not accurate. Every ship performed exactly as designed. Every weapon functioned within normal parameters. Every crew member did exactly what they were trained to do. An Altarian reporter asked, "Then how do you explain the efficiency of your victory?" Captain Morgan's smile was not reassuring. "You've been thinking about this wrong. You assumed that because we're peaceful, we're weak. You assumed that because we prefer diplomacy, we're bad at war. But here's what you missed, we come from Earth." She stood, and her presence was intimidating even through recording. "We evolved on a planet that's been trying to kill us for millions of years. We survived ice ages and supervolcanoes and asteroid impacts. We built civilization while dodging predators that could bite through steel." The reporters were silent. Every human in our fleet is descended from survivors of the most hostile world in known space. And you thought that because we chose to be nice, we didn't know how to be anything else. Her voice dropped to a whisper that carried more menace than any shout. We've been nice for 300 years. We've been helpful and diplomatic and patient and kind. We formed committees and followed protocols and tried to make everyone happy. Her eyes found the cameras. But niceness isn't weakness. It's a choice. And the thing about choices is, we can always choose differently. Within hours, every intelligence service was reassessing their files on humanity. What they found painted a terrifying picture. Humans didn't have the strongest military by accident. They were the only species forged by their own planet into apex predators. The galaxy was beginning to understand they hadn't been living alongside gentle giants. They'd been living alongside predators who had simply chosen to be vegetarian. And now, something had made them very, very hungry. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 3 days after Haven Prime. For the first time in its 800-year history, the Great Chamber buzzed with something approaching panic. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez walked to her podium with the same measured pace, but something had changed in her bearing, a subtle shift that made predatory species instinctively step back. High Counselor Zeth Kree activated his translation matrix with unprecedented caution. Ambassador Rodriguez, the Council wishes to express concern over the Terran Federation's response to the Haven Prime incident. Elena nodded politely. The Federation appreciates the Council's concern. The complete destruction of the Kethvar battle fleet was disproportionate. Surely a diplomatic solution could have been. High Counselor, Elena interrupted, her voice still soft but carrying a dangerous edge. Could you clarify the Council's position on genocide? Confused silence. Genocide. The systematic extermination of a sentient species. What is the Council's official position? Well, naturally, it's forbidden under. And what is the prescribed penalty for genocide under galactic law? Zeth Kree's bioluminescent patches flickered uncertainly. The penalty is death, but there are procedures, tribunals, appeals processes. Thank you. Elena's knuckles were white behind her back. The Kethvar committed genocide against Haven Prime's indigenous population. Under galactic law, the penalty is death. The Terran Defense Fleet carried out that sentence. The Vorthak delegate's translator crackled with indignation. But there are procedures. You cannot simply execute an entire fleet. Elena turned toward the Vorthak delegation, and something in her movement made several species reach for emergency transmitters. The procedures you're referring to have an average completion time of 23 years. During those 23 years, the Kethvar would have continued enslaving populations while their case wound through courts. She paused. How many more sentient beings would have died while we followed procedures? The chamber fell silent. The Terran Federation has always respected this council's authority. We've followed your procedures, respected your timelines, worked within your systems. We've been patient while slave raids continued because perpetrators were under investigation. We've been diplomatic while genocides proceeded because intervention would violate sovereignty. Her voice began to rise. We've been nice. The last word carried weight that made even the Altarians lean back. But Haven Prime changed something. 2 million of our citizens are dead. An entire indigenous species has been wiped from the universe forever. While this council would have spent 2 decades debating jurisdiction. She looked around the chamber, meeting every optical sensor and compound eye. The Terran Federation is serving notice. We will no longer wait for the galaxy's permission to protect the innocent. We will no longer follow procedures while people die. We will no longer be nice to those who prey on the weak. High Counselor Zeth Kree's voice carried desperation. Ambassador, surely you're not suggesting. I'm stating fact. The Terran Federation is withdrawing from military cooperation with species that haven't ratified the Universal Rights Charter. We're suspending humanitarian aid to governments that harbor slave traders. Any attack on human citizens or protected species will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. Elena smiled, the same gentle smile she'd worn for decades. But now it looked different. We're not dictating terms. We're simply choosing to stop being nice to those who mistake our kindness for weakness. Captain Singh had been hunting slavers for 3 weeks when he found the convoy. The merchant ships moved through the Vega Nebula, their holds filled with cargo that registered as life signs on his scanners. 12 vessels, lightly armed, escorted by a pair of hegemony destroyers that had been decommissioned years ago but remained remarkably well maintained. Standard procedure would be to call for council peacekeepers, observed Lieutenant Hayes. File a report, wait for jurisdiction determination, allow for due process. Captain Singh didn't look away from the tactical display. And how long would that take? Conservative estimate? 18 months. And how long do you think those people in the cargo holds have? Hayes was quiet. Then, not 18 months, sir. No. Not 18 months. The TDF Retribution was alone, a single heavy cruiser against 13 ships. By the old rules, Singh would have shadowed them while calling for backup, building a case, following procedures. But the old rules had died at Haven Prime. Signal the convoy, Singh ordered. The response came quickly, a hegemony captain whose translator conveyed casual arrogance. This is a legitimate merchant operation, human. We have papers, proper documentation. Captain, Singh interrupted, I'm going to make this very simple. You have 30 seconds to shut down your engines, release your prisoners, and surrender your vessels. The alien's laughter came through clearly. 1 ship against 13. Have the Deathworlders finally lost their minds? Singh looked around his bridge, at humans who had chosen to serve on the frontier, who had volunteered for the dangerous work of hunting monsters in the dark between stars. They looked back with expressions he recognized, predators who had been patient for a very long time. 20 seconds, Singh said calmly. This is insane. Even if you could somehow. 10 seconds. The transmission cut off. On the tactical display, the convoy began to scatter, escort destroyers moving to intercept. Weapons free, Singh ordered. Remember, the merchant ships have innocent people aboard. Disable them if possible. But the escorts. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 2 hegemony destroyers had been reduced to expanding plasma clouds. The merchant ships hung dead in space, engines destroyed but life support intact. TDF boarding parties freed men, women, and children from a dozen different species. Among the rescued were Altarian juveniles, members of the same species that dominated the Galactic Council. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The Terran Defense Fleet had divided into hunter-killer groups, each operating independently, targeting criminal networks that had operated with impunity for decades. On Epsilon Ceti, a mining operation using enslaved workers found itself under siege by TDF Marines who had penetrated orbital defenses without triggering alarms. The private army surrendered without firing a shot when they realized they were facing humans. In the Procyon system, a slave auction was interrupted by TDF ships that had dropped out of hyperspace inside the gravity well. A navigation feat that should have been impossible but which human pilots performed with casual competence. The message was clear, the galaxy's apex predators had decided to stop playing by rules that protected the wicked and punished the innocent. High Counselor Zeth Kree reviewed reports showing systematic collapse among criminal networks. In 3 weeks, humanity had accomplished more than Council peacekeepers had managed in 3 decades. How are they so efficient? He asked quietly. The galaxy was learning, the gentle giants had remembered how to hunt. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez sat across from High Counselor Zeth Kree in a private meeting room deep within the council station. Between them lay a data pad containing casualty reports and economic projections that painted a stark picture of the galaxy's new reality. 3 weeks, Zeth Kree said quietly. In 3 weeks, your species has accomplished what our peacekeeping forces have failed to do in 30 years. Elena nodded. We're efficient. You're terrifying. She tilted her head. Are we? We haven't harmed a single innocent being. We haven't seized territory. We haven't demanded tribute. We've simply stopped allowing evil to flourish while we debate procedures. Zethkree's patches flickered with deep unease. You've destroyed 17 criminal organizations. Thousands of beings. Thousands of beings who chose to make their living enslaving others, Elena corrected. Who chose to profit from suffering while hiding behind laws they knew we were too civilized to break. And if they band together? Form alliances against you? Elena's smile was cold. High Counselor, are you familiar with human military history? Some of it. Your species has been remarkably warlike. We've been remarkably good at ending wars, Elena interrupted. Do you know what happens when humans face organized enemy alliances? Zethkree remained silent. We become very, very creative. Haven Prime was just one fleet against another, conventional engagement. But if the galaxy's criminals want to organize against us? Her voice trailed off, expression becoming distant. That would require a different approach. The High Counselor's patches went dark, extreme distress among his people. What do you want from the Council? Nothing you weren't supposed to provide already. Justice. Protection for the innocent. Equal application of law. The difference is we're no longer willing to wait for you to provide it. The Council has procedures. The Council has excuses. Elena leaned forward. In the past 3 weeks, how many formal complaints have you received about human actions? Zethkree consulted his data pad. 47 official protests. And how many came from the victims we rescued? A pause. None. How many came from law-abiding governments whose citizens weren't involved in slavery? 3. And how many came from criminal organizations and corrupt officials? Zethkree's patches dimmed. 44. Elena sat back. The criminals are complaining because we're disrupting their business. The corrupt are complaining because we're ignoring their protection. Does the Council plan to listen to these complaints? We have to consider all perspectives. No. You don't. You have to choose. You can stand with victims or victimizers. You can enforce your own laws or continue letting procedure protect predators. She stood gracefully. The Terran Federation isn't asking for permission. We're informing you of reality. We will continue protecting the innocent and punishing the guilty. We will continue acting when the Council fails. We will continue choosing efficiency over bureaucracy. And if the Council orders you to stop? Elena's laugh was unpleasant. The Council can't stop slave raiders in its own territory. What makes you think you can stop the species that eliminated them in 3 weeks? She moved toward the door, then paused. But there is another option. Work with us. Streamline procedures. Focus on results instead of process. There's no reason the Council can't be as effective as we are. Her hand rested on the door control. You can work with us to build a galaxy where law means something. Or you can stand in our way and learn why our planet produced apex predators instead of philosophers. 6 months after Haven Prime, the galaxy had changed. Captain Singh stood on the observation deck of the TDF Retribution, watching as refugee ships departed the former slave world of Rigel 7. Where mining operations had once worked enslaved beings from dozens of species, there were now empty facilities and a population of free citizens rebuilding their lives. Final count, Captain, reported Lieutenant Hayes. 47,000 freed individuals, representing 23 species. All offered relocation assistance or the option to establish a colonial government. Singh nodded. It was the 53rd Liberation Operation, part of a systematic campaign that had swept across criminal networks like cleansing fire. Across the galaxy, transformations were taking place. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood in the same chamber where, months earlier, she had delivered humanity's ultimatum. The atmosphere had changed dramatically. Where once there had been condescension, there was now respectful attention. The Terran Federation is pleased to announce the completion of Operation Clean Sweep, she said. As of today, organized slave trading has been eliminated from all sectors under Council jurisdiction. Genuine applause rippled through the chamber, not polite acknowledgement, but appreciation from delegates whose species had benefited from liberation campaigns. We are also pleased to announce that piracy in the Outer Rim has decreased by 87%, and trafficking in prohibited weapons has been reduced by 92%. High Counselor Zeth Kree leaned forward. Ambassador Rodriguez, the Council wishes to express its gratitude for the Terran Federation's decisive action. Elena nodded. The Federation was simply enforcing existing galactic law. We look forward to working with the Council to maintain these improvements. To that end, the Council has voted to establish the Rapid Response Fleet. This force will be empowered to act immediately in cases of piracy and slavery without requiring traditional committee approval. An excellent development, Elena agreed. The Terran Federation would be honored to provide training and support. What she didn't say, what everyone understood, was that this support would ensure the Council's enforcement operated with human efficiency. Later, Elena received a secure communication from Earth. President Martinez's hologram materialized above her desk. The Council's adaptation has been remarkable, he observed. 6 months ago they were accusing us of destabilizing the galaxy. Now they're asking us to train their peacekeepers. Fear is an excellent motivator, Elena replied. They've realized we're not going back to the old ways, so they're choosing to work with us. And the surviving criminal organizations? They're adapting too. Several syndicates have announced transitions to legitimate business. Others have disappeared. The smart ones realized the risk-reward calculation changed permanently. President Martinez smiled grimly. The galaxy thought we were weak because we chose to be gentle. They forgot that gentleness is a luxury apex predators can afford to give up. Elena looked out at the Council station. Ships from dozens of species moved in orderly patterns, trade vessels, diplomatic transports, patrol craft maintaining impossible peace. We gave the galaxy 300 years to get its act together, she said quietly. 300 years of patience and faith in the system. But when they came for our people, we remembered what we are, Martinez finished. Yes. We remembered what we are. Children across 100 worlds would grow up free from slavers and pirates. They would learn in safe schools, play in secure parks, dream dreams no longer crushed by exploitation. The Deathworlders had awakened, and the galaxy was better for it. In quiet moments, veterans would remember the old saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. For 3 centuries, humanity had spoken very softly indeed. Now the galaxy had learned why they had never needed to raise their voice. The stick had always been there, waiting patiently. They had simply chosen not to use it. Until now.